How's everyone doing today? Welcome to another boss guide. I'm Ouroboros, and today we're going to go over Morogrim Tidewalker, the 5th boss in Serpentine Cavern. Morogrim Tidewalker is a sea giant boss that summons Murloc adds throughout the fight. He's typically the first boss that can cause some headaches in SSC, and this is usually caused by poor management of the Murloc adds. So hopefully this guide will help you reach him prepared to deal with that. Alright, let's get into it, starting with raid comp. You're going to want to bring 2 to 3 tanks. For progression, I highly recommend bringing 3 tanks, and would only suggest attempting to 2-tank it if one of your tanks is a paladin. 5 to 6 healers, and a mix of DPS. There are multiple ways to approach positioning on this fight. I'll be using a standard positioning for the purpose of this guide to illustrate the mechanics. That being said, let's get into it and start covering Tidewalker's abilities. First up, let's talk about Tidal Wave. Morogrim will cast this roughly every 20 seconds on the main tank. It deals between 4 and 5,000 damage and leaves a debuff, increasing the time between attacks by 400%, meaning that while this is applied, threat generation will be limited and DPS need to keep eyes on their threat meters. The second ability to go over is Watery Grave. This will be cast every 20 to 30 seconds, and when this is cast, 3 random players will be teleported to the middle of the room and trapped in a bubble for 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, the bubble will pop, dealing about 3,000 damage to the player, and they'll be knocked into the air, causing them to take a little bit of full damage. One healer will be positioned specifically to cover players affected by this. Finally, Morogrim's main mechanic, Earthquake. This will be cast about 40 seconds after the fight begins, and roughly every 1 minute after the first cast. When this happens, all players in the raid will take 4,000 damage. The healer on the Watery Graves needs to be aware of potential overlaps with both Grave and Earthquake. This will also trigger the spawning of Murloc adds. There will be 2 packs of 6 Murlocs, one coming from the south and one coming from the northern tunnel. Healers need to be careful here when recovering from the damage caused by the Earthquake AoE not to pull threat on the Murlocs. The 2 off tanks will position to pick up one of these packs each, and bring them to the boss to be cleaved down. Hunters should be using misdirections here and frost traps. Mages should blizzard as required to help slow the Murlocs. You want to kill each set of Murlocs before the next Earthquake is cast. If you were using a single paladin to tank the Murlocs, they will need all the help they can get to help pick up the Murlocs. Once they are active, the paladin should cast a few heals to get some initial threat on all of them. Slows and misdirects are extremely important here if you're taking this route. Now just quickly on the Murlocs, they have a couple of mechanics that you need to be mindful of. First is that they will use Pierce Armor on their target, reducing their armor by 75%. Because of this, it is important the Murlocs are never attacking the Tidewalker tank. The other ability that they have is a Bleed, which they will apply to their current target. Once Morogrim reaches 25% health, he will no longer cast Watery Grave and will instead summon Watery Globules. These deal damage on contact and spawn from the center of the room where Graves were teleported to. As these get closer to the boss, the group should simply kite the boss around to ensure that they never actually reach you. Alright, now that we've covered all the mechanics of the boss, let's cover the positioning. The ranged DPS and healers will stack towards the top pillar, while the tank and the melee are toward the bottom pillar. One healer should be assigned to Watery Graves and will stand slightly to the left of the ranged stack group, as you can see here. A druid is usually best for this, but any healer will manage just fine. After Earthquake, when the Murlocs spawn, the tanks assigned to tank them should move to pick them up like you can see here, and start to move them towards the boss to be cleaved down. The Watery Grave healer needs to keep an eye on the tank on that side of the room as he picks up the Murlocs. Once the boss finally hits 25% and the globules start to spawn, simply move together as you can see we do here, and just keep on pumping DPS till he falls over, and finally onward to Vash. Well, that concludes my Morogrim Tidewalker guide. If you found this helpful, please drop a like. If you want to see more guides and content in the future, be sure to click subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.